She felt everyone's pain until it destroyed her, the curse of empathy. She carried the weight of the world, not her own, but the world of everyone she met. Their joys were fleeting echoes, their sorrows, deep, resonant caverns within her soul. It wasn't a choice, this porous boundary between herself and others. It was an inherent state, a constant hum of shared experience that vibrated through her very being. Successes felt like borrowed triumphs, fleeting and ultimately hollow, because she could always perceive the faint whispers of those who hadn't reached the summit, the silent anxieties of those who feared the fall. Conversely, even the smallest personal victory was often overshadowed by the palpable suffering of someone else, a dark cloud obscuring any personal sunshine. This profound empathy, initially perceived as a gift, had become a relentless burden, a curse that eroded her sense of self, leaving her adrift in a sea of borrowed emotions. He had built an empire, brick by painstaking brick, each success meticulously catalogued, each milestone a testament to his unwavering will. Yet beneath the polished veneer of achievement, a gnawing emptiness festered. The accolades felt like distant applause, the rewards like gilded cages. He woke each morning with a sense of purpose, a drive to conquer, only to find himself arriving nowhere. The relentless pursuit of more, of better, had become a treadmill, a frantic motion that consumed his energy but yielded no true destination. The external markers of success, the wealth, the recognition, the power, were simply elaborate distractions from an internal void. He was a man perpetually in motion, yet profoundly still, trapped in a cycle of striving that offered no genuine fulfillment, only a deeper awareness of his own profound disconnect. This is where the journey begins, not with answers, but with the stark, undeniable recognition of a shared human predicament. It's the quiet despair that settles in after the party, the lingering unease after the applause fades. It's the feeling of being profoundly alone, even in a crowded room, the silent scream of a self that feels lost, fragmented, or overwhelmed. We are often taught to build walls, to protect ourselves, to strive for individual victory. But what happens when the very fabric of our being is woven with the threads of others, when empathy becomes an overwhelming tide? Or when the relentless pursuit of external validation leaves us hollow? This script is not about providing solutions, but about holding a mirror to these experiences, about acknowledging the silent battles fought within the human heart. It's about understanding that the deepest truths often emerge not from grand pronouncements, but from the quiet moments of collapse, from the raw vulnerability of realizing that perhaps, just perhaps, we've been looking in the wrong direction all along. The air in the room grew heavy, not with unspoken words, but with the palpable weight of unspoken feelings. It was the kind of silence that precedes a storm, a stillness that hinted at an impending unraveling. She felt it first as a dull ache, then as a sharp pang, a distress signal from a self that was becoming indistinguishable from the collective pain she absorbed. The vibrant colors of her own life began to bleed into the muted grays of others' despair, her laughter often stifled by the echoes of unheard cries. It was a disorienting state, a constant negotiation between her own burgeoning needs and the overwhelming needs of everyone around her. The boundary, once a protective shield, had dissolved, leaving her exposed, vulnerable, and increasingly lost. He stood at the precipice of his own perceived triumphs, the world applauding a man he no longer recognized. The drive that had propelled him forward for so long had mutated, becoming a relentless engine of self-destruction, fueled by a desperate need to fill a void that seemed to expand with every success. He had mastered the art of projection, of appearing whole, while internally he felt the tremors of a foundation crumbling. The achievements, once sources of pride, now served as stark reminders of the sacrifices made, of the parts of himself he had willingly or perhaps unwillingly extinguished in the pursuit of an ever-receding horizon. The silence that followed his victories was not one of peace, but of a profound, unsettling quietude, a void where genuine satisfaction should have resided. This is the precipice we often find ourselves on, the moment when the external landscape of our lives fails to reflect the internal reality. It is the recognition that the pursuit of happiness, as conventionally defined, can lead us away from it, that the relentless drive for success can leave us feeling profoundly impoverished. This script will explore the subtle ways in which we lose ourselves, how the very things we chase can become the chains that bind us. It's an invitation to pause, to breathe, and to acknowledge the quiet desperation that can simmer beneath the surface of even the most outwardly successful lives. We will journey together, not towards easy answers, but towards a deeper understanding of the human condition, a condition marked by inherent paradoxes and the enduring search for meaning in a world that often offers only fleeting distractions. The weight she carried wasn't just the sorrow of others, it was the silent burden of their unexpressed potential, the ghost of choices they hadn't made, the echoes of dreams they had deferred. She felt the sting of their regrets as if they were her own, a constant hum of what-ifs and could-have-beens that muddied her own path. This empathy wasn't a passive reception. It was an active, albeit unconscious, entanglement. She found herself subtly steering conversations, nudging decisions, all in an attempt to guide others away from the pain she so acutely felt emanating from them. This well-intentioned interference, however, often led to a different kind of suffering, the frustration of witnessing individuals trapped by their own inertia, their own fears, a pain amplified by her inability to truly break them free. It was like watching a bird with clipped wings, knowing it yearned to fly, but being powerless to mend its brokenness. Conversely, his relentless pursuit of external validation had cultivated a peculiar form of internal blindness. He had become so adept at constructing a persona, a facade of unwavering competence and control, that he had effectively shut out any genuine emotional feedback. The successes he chased were merely reflections in a distorted mirror, each achievement reinforcing the illusion of his own invincibility, while simultaneously deepening his isolation. He interpreted any deviation from his meticulously crafted path not as an opportunity for growth, but as a personal failing, a crack in the armor that threatened to expose his perceived inadequacy. This rigidity, born of a deep-seated fear of vulnerability, meant that even when confronted with the hollowness of his achievements, he lacked the internal framework to process it, to understand its origin, or to seek a different way. Furthermore, consider the subtle ways this disconnection manifests in our daily lives. It's the colleague who meticulously perfects every report, yet avoids any spontaneous collaboration, fearing that shared effort might dilute their individual brilliance. It's the artist who labors in solitude, convinced that external criticism will shatter their fragile vision, thus forfeiting the invaluable dialogue that can elevate their work. These are not acts of deliberate malice, but rather the quiet strategies of a self trying to navigate a world that often feels overwhelming, either by absorbing too much of its pain or by erecting impenetrable barriers against it. The common thread is a profound misunderstanding of what it means to be truly connected, to engage with the world in a way that fosters growth rather than fosters isolation. Consider, too, the impact on relationships. When empathy becomes an overwhelming deluge, it can drown the individual, leaving no space for genuine intimacy. The empathic soul may find themselves becoming a perpetual caregiver, a silent listener who absorbs everyone's burdens, yet struggles to articulate their own needs or receive support. They become so accustomed to the role of the strong, silent supporter that asking for help feels like a betrayal of their very essence. This dynamic, while seemingly selfless, can breed resentment and a deep-seated loneliness as their own emotional landscape remains unexplored, their own wounds left untended. Conversely, the individual, driven by an insatiable need for external validation, often struggles with genuine connection. They may view relationships as transactional, as opportunities to bolster their own image or to gain further affirmation. True vulnerability is seen as a weakness, a risk that could jeopardize the carefully constructed edifice of their success. Consequently, their interactions can feel superficial, lacking the depth and authenticity that comes from mutual understanding and shared emotional experience. They may find themselves surrounded by admirers, yet profoundly alone, their relationships built on sand rather than on the bedrock of shared humanity. This dance between absorption and isolation, between porous boundaries and impenetrable walls, is a fundamental aspect of the human struggle for meaning. It's a testament to our inherent need for connection and our often flawed strategies for achieving it. The pain arises not just from external circumstances, but from the internal dissonance, the gap between who we present ourselves to be and the quiet whispers of our truest selves. It's in these moments of profound discomfort, when our usual coping mechanisms begin to falter, that the possibility for genuine insight emerges, a chance to re-examine the foundations upon which we have built our lives. The core of the struggle, then, lies not just in managing external perceptions or internal voids, but in the very architecture of our self-perception. When we define ourselves solely by our achievements, we build our identity on shifting sands, vulnerable to the inevitable tides of failure or obsolescence. Conversely, when our sense of worth is tethered to the approval or distress of others, we become emotional chameleons, constantly adapting, rarely standing firm in our own unique hue. This internal architecture, this self-constructed framework, dictates our capacity for resilience, for authentic joy, and for genuine connection. It's the silent blueprint that guides our reactions, shapes our aspirations, and ultimately determines the quality of our lived experience. Furthermore, consider the insidious nature of emotional mimicry. It's not simply about feeling what others feel, but about unconsciously adopting their emotional states as our own, blurring the lines of genuine personal response. Imagine a person who, after a brief encounter with a friend, experiencing deep anxiety, finds themselves carrying that unease for days, unable to shake it off, even when their own circumstances are entirely stable. This isn't just empathy, it's a form of emotional contagion, where the boundaries of the self become so permeable that external emotional states can hijack one's own internal equilibrium. This phenomenon, often mistaken for profound sensitivity, can lead to a debilitating exhaustion, a constant state of emotional flux that prevents the development of a stable, resilient inner core. Building on this, however, a crucial distinction emerges: the difference between authentic empathy and a performance of empathy. One can observe another's pain and genuinely feel a pang of shared humanity, a desire to alleviate suffering without necessarily internalizing it as one's own. This is a healthy connective response. The detrimental form arises when we begin to believe we are the embodiment of others' pain, when our identity becomes so intertwined with their struggles that our own needs and experiences are sidelined or even erased. This can manifest as an inability to set boundaries, a constant need to fix everyone else's problems, stemming from a fear that if we aren't actively engaged in alleviating others' suffering, we lose our own sense of purpose or worth. Conversely, for those driven by external validation, the performance is not of empathy, but of success. Every action, every word is calibrated to elicit admiration or approval. This often involves a meticulous curation of one's public persona, presenting an unblemished image of competence, confidence, and achievement. The fear of exposure, of revealing any imperfection or vulnerability becomes paramount. This can lead to a profound disconnect between the public self and the private self, a hollow echo chamber where achievements are celebrated but genuine connection remains elusive. The individual may find themselves constantly striving yet perpetually unsatisfied, as the validation they receive is for the mask they wear, not for the person beneath it. Another crucial layer is the role of narrative in shaping our self-perception. We are storytellers, constantly weaving narratives about who we are, where we've come from, and where we're going. When our narrative is dominated by external achievements, we risk becoming characters in a story that has no true ending, only a series of escalating plot points. When our narrative is defined by the sorrows of others, we risk becoming a tragic figure, perpetually defined by the suffering we witness, unable to author our own redemption or joy. The challenge, then, is to cultivate a narrative that acknowledges both external realities and internal experience, a story that allows for both connection and individuality, for both struggle and triumph, without becoming wholly consumed by either. Now, consider how this applies when you face a situation where your own needs seem to conflict with the perceived needs of someone you care about. Does your internal narrative compel you to prioritize their well-being, even at your own expense? Or does it allow for a space where your own emotional footing can be secured before extending a hand? This internal architecture, this self-constructed framework, is what allows us to weather the storms of life. It's the quiet confidence that arises not from a lack of challenges, but from the knowledge that we possess the inner resources to face them. It's the ability to feel deeply for others without losing ourselves in their emotional currents. It's the pursuit of meaningful goals, not for the applause they might garner, but for the intrinsic value they hold. This foundational strength, this robust sense of self, is not built overnight. It is cultivated through conscious awareness, through the courageous act of turning inward, not to escape the world, but to understand our place within it, with clarity and with an unwavering sense of our own inherent worth. The societal pressure to present an unblemished facade of strength can inadvertently foster a profound disconnect from our own internal landscapes. We are often conditioned to believe that vulnerability is synonymous with weakness, that admitting to doubt or struggle is a personal failing that will invite judgment or ostracism. This pervasive narrative encourages a vigilant self-policing, a constant effort to maintain an appearance of unwavering control. Consequently, individuals may develop a sophisticated repertoire of deflection and denial, skillfully redirecting attention away from their authentic emotional states. They might become adept at using humor to mask insecurity, or at projecting an aura of relentless optimism to conceal underlying anxieties. This outward projection, while seemingly effective in navigating social interactions, creates a chasm between the presented self and the true self, a hidden interiority that grows increasingly unfamiliar even to the individual themselves. Furthermore, the relentless pursuit of external validation, particularly in highly competitive environments, can warp our perception of genuine success. When achievement is solely measured by quantifiable metrics, promotions, accolades, public recognition, the intrinsic satisfaction derived from the process itself becomes secondary, even negligible. This can lead to a phenomenon where individuals achieve their stated goals only to find themselves feeling hollow, questioning the ultimate value of their efforts. The arrival is anticlimactic because the journey, the very essence of growth and learning, was overshadowed by the singular focus on the destination. This can breed a peculiar form of disillusionment, where even immense success feels like a Pyrrhic victory, leaving the individual questioning the substance of their accomplishments and the authenticity of their own drive. Consider the subtle ways this disconnect impacts our decision-making processes. When our sense of self-worth is contingent upon external approval, our choices become less about personal integrity and more about managing perceptions. We might find ourselves agreeing to tasks or commitments that overextend us, not because we genuinely desire to, but because saying no is perceived as a sign of weakness or unwillingness. Similarly, we may avoid expressing dissenting opinions or challenging prevailing norms, fearing that such actions could jeopardize our social standing or professional advancement. This constant calibration to external expectations can lead to a gradual erosion of personal agency, where our lives are steered not by our own compass, but by the perceived desires and judgments of others. Another crucial layer to this internal schism is the impact of societal archetypes. We are bombarded with images of idealized individuals, the effortlessly successful entrepreneur, the perpetually serene yogi, the flawlessly composed leader. These archetypes, while aspirational for some, can become prisons for others. They set an impossibly high bar, fostering a sense of inadequacy for those who do not or cannot conform. The pressure to embody these idealized roles can lead individuals to suppress authentic aspects of their personality that don't align with the prescribed image. A naturally introverted person might feel compelled to project extroversion, or someone who experiences periods of doubt might feel pressured to maintain an air of unshakable confidence. This internal dissonance, the constant battle between one's authentic self and the projected persona, can be an exhausting and deeply isolating experience. Now, reflect on how this plays out when you encounter information that contradicts your deeply held beliefs. Does your immediate response lean towards defending your existing worldview, perhaps by seeking out confirming evidence and dismissing contradictory data? Or is there a willingness to engage with the new information, to consider its implications, and to potentially adjust your understanding, even if it challenges your established sense of self? This internal flexibility, or lack thereof, is a direct consequence of how we have constructed our own sense of identity and our relationship with external validation. The more rigidly our self-worth is tied to specific beliefs or external markers of success, the more threatened we become by anything that questions those foundations, leading us to retreat into a protective shell of confirmation bias, rather than venturing into the fertile ground of genuine inquiry. Reflecting on this journey so far, we can sense a subtle shift occurring, a coalescing of disparate observations into a more unified understanding. It's akin to watching individual brushstrokes on a canvas gradually merge, revealing not just their own forms, but the emergent shape of the entire composition. The anxieties we've explored, the internal dialogues that have played out, the very essence of our striving and our quiet moments of doubt, all these threads are weaving together, not into a neat, predictable pattern, but into a richer, more complex tapestry of human experience. The initial dissonance, the feeling of being adrift or fragmented, begins to find a resonance, a common rhythm that connects our individual journeys to a broader, shared exploration. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider how the pursuit of external markers, the careful curation of our inner lives, and the intricate dance of empathy and self-preservation all converge. These are not isolated phenomena, but interconnected facets of a single, profound quest for equilibrium. The energy expended in maintaining certain facades, the emotional toll of absorbing or deflecting the world's complexities, and the deep-seated yearning for authentic connection all contribute to a cumulative pressure. This pressure, while often felt as a burden, also serves as a potent catalyst, illuminating the very structures we have built around ourselves and hinting at the possibility of a different kind of foundation. In light of these insights, the path forward, though not yet fully revealed, begins to feel less like a desperate search for an elusive destination and more like a gentle unfolding. The very act of acknowledging the intricate interplay of these forces, the external pressures, the internal architecture, the narrative we construct, opens up a space for a different kind of engagement with our lives. It's as if the fog, which once obscured the landscape, is beginning to lift, not revealing a singular definitive route, but a vast terrain ripe for exploration, one where the terrain itself holds the clues to navigating it with greater grace and authenticity. The cumulative weight of our observations invites a quiet recalibration, a subtle reorientation towards an inner compass that has always been present, waiting to be truly heard. The journey we've undertaken, tracing the intricate pathways of self-empathy and external validation, has led us to a profound realization. The perceived dichotomy between inner authenticity and outward success is often a false one. The relentless pursuit of applause, the careful construction of an unassailable facade, and the overwhelming absorption of others' emotional states are not separate struggles, but interconnected symptoms of a deeper yearning. A yearning for true belonging, not just within a community, but within oneself. We've seen how the architecture of our self-worth, built on foundations of external approval or the echoes of others' pain, can leave us feeling perpetually adrift, even amidst apparent triumphs. The energy expended in maintaining these structures, while often disguised as strength or compassion, can drain us of the very vitality needed for genuine connection and self-discovery. This continuous effort to project an image, to absorb or deflect, creates a silent strain, a subtle disconnect between the self we present and the self that truly resides within. It's a dance performed on a stage, where every movement is observed, every gesture analyzed, leaving little room for the quiet, unobserved moments where true growth and healing can occur. The paradox lies in the fact that the very strategies we employ to feel more secure, more connected, or more successful can, in fact, lead us further away from these aspirations, trapping us in a cycle of striving and subtle dissatisfaction. The silence we often seek to fill with external noise or internal absorption is, in fact, the very space where our own authentic voice can finally emerge, unburdened by the expectations of others or the weight of borrowed emotions. The insight that crystallizes from this exploration is not a new set of rules or a definitive answer, but a gentle invitation to shift our gaze. Instead of seeking validation from without or attempting to manage the emotional currents of others, the true practice lies in cultivating a deep, unwavering acceptance of our own inner landscape. This means acknowledging our vulnerabilities not as flaws, but as integral parts of our humanity. It means recognizing that our capacity for empathy is a gift, but one that requires healthy boundaries to prevent it from becoming a burden that erodes our own sense of self. It means understanding that authentic success is not merely the accumulation of external achievements, but the quiet satisfaction derived from living in alignment with our deepest values, from engaging with the world from a place of inner wholeness. The path forward, then, is not about discarding these intricate structures entirely, but about understanding their purpose and their limitations. It is about discerning when they serve us and when they hinder us, and having the courage to gently dismantle those that no longer align with our authentic selves. This is not a call to abandon our connections or our ambitions, but to infuse them with a renewed sense of presence and integrity. It's about recognizing that the most profound form of connection begins with the connection we foster within ourselves, a connection built not on performance or absorption, but on acceptance and quiet self-awareness. The true practice begins now, not with grand gestures, but with the subtle yet powerful act of turning inward and listening, truly listening, to the wisdom that has been there all along.